Nō reira, tēnā tātou. Tuatahi ka mihi atu kia koutou katoa, koe tai mai ki tēnei wāanga kōrero, e pāna ki ngā mai pū wairakau, hapori, nau mai ara mai. Ko Patini Ridge taku ingoa, he uri ahau no taranaki maunga, he kaimahi mo Aotea Solutions, nei ra te mihi ki a koutou katoa, ki tō tātou kai kōrero o te ata nei, ko Hollie Russell, he uri a ia no Ngāti Rakaipaaka, me Ngāti Pākehā oki, kei te noho ia ki whangarei, e mahi ana, he kai kōkiri a ia mō parakore. So very delighted to have you all here e oama to this session and to have Hollie Russell be a kai kōrero. And to be sharing about community composting. She is the coordinator for te Taitokerau for Parakore. If you don't know of that organisation, it's a fantastic, wow, inspirational group of tai aotoa around the motu who are educating, sharing mahi tupuna, traditional Māori, kaupapa Māori approaches to becoming kaimara again, looking after our mahinga kai, and all things to do with getting back to our traditional, I was going to say holistic system, as opposed to a circular system there that Te Ao Māori has always functioned from, and that we're inviting everyone to re-engage and ignite again as we decolonise ourselves with wonderful support from our tiriti allies. So, Hollie, kei a koe te wā, tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe, Patina, and tēnā koutou katoa. Te kāna te kōrero me mihi ki te atua, nāna I hanga, nāna I tango, kororia ki tōna ngā tapu, I ona ingoa maha. I just want to give a special mihi to my hoa mahi, who was originally going to present today, the session, Te Kawa Rob and his whanau, who lost their papa yesterday, and ko Andrew Rob tōna ingoa. Yeah, he tangata tiriti ia, he rangatira mō te reo Māori, so moi mai rā e matua, and ka mihi ki te hunga mati katoa hoki atu rā ki te kāinga tūtere o tērā tangata, haere. Me hurihia ki te hunga ora, tēnei te mihi ki tātou katoa ko rewe mai nei, ka hari ko te ngākau, te kite a koutou mo te kaupapa o community composting, me te mahi o parakore ko wairakau, I te taho o tōke mama, he uri o Ngāti Rakaipaaka, no Nūhaka, aroha mai, no Ngā Nūhaka, our Auntie Liz is encouraging our whanau to reclaim the traditional name. And I te taha o tōku papa ko Ngāti Pākehā o ko Hollie Russell tōku ingoa, he kai mahi mō parakore ki Taitokerau, and kei whangarei e noho ana I nai nei. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Yeah, so really excited to be here today. I thought I would start, I'm outside. I decided I would brave the element and really hope that this is going to work out for me, because I wanted to do my presentation by our amazing new compost bin, which I'll kind of talk about a bit more soon. But yeah, when I'm presenting, I can't see the chat. So if there's any issues, just yell out, please. And I thought I'd start with a quick presentation that will give an intro to Parakore, just for those who might not know about us or what we do. And then I've kind of assumed that people have come to this session, that the people that have come here today are interested in community compost, about how to set it up, about what the challenges might be, what the options might be. So I've created my presentation around that rather than composting 101, if that makes sense. But my presentation is only short, and then we'll open it up for whakawhiti kōrero, and I'm really happy to go with the flow if we want to change direction a little bit on that. So I'm just going to share my screen. Yeah, cool. So this is our whanau out at Whakahiwai, Papatuanuku Tiwi, and this is a mara that they planted late 2020 outside their old kura, and just in front, which you can't see where we're taking a photo from, is their kaumātua flat. Just 2 minutes down the road is their marae and their kohanga, and if you go the other way, that's their local kura now. But yeah, so I just thought it was a nice photo that kind of captured the rōpū, the tangata that we work with at Parakore. So our mission at Parakore is to educate and advocate from a Māori worldview for a world without waste. So para, waste, kore, none. And our education program supports growing the capacity and capability of whanau, hapu, iwi, marae, kohanga reo, kura, Wānanga, Pākeha, hapori. Yeah, anyone who wants to work with us, we always try and find a way of supporting. And yeah, our vision is for a thriving natural environment that nurtures our communities, who can then in turn nurture Papatuanuku, rangi nui. So all about oranga taia, oranga marae, oranga whanau, as you can see here. And so one of the things we do at Parakore is we help whanau and hapori to reduce their waste to landfill by setting up compost to deal with both their food waste, green waste, and something that we're going to put it all a bit more about later, but other carbon sources like compostable packaging. And just because of the way that our Māori rōpū work, they're more often than not community compost. So they might be set up at one site, but they're often accessible to the wider community. So on the top left there, we've got Te Kaurinui Parata at the first compost we set up at the Hihiawa Cultural Centre in Whangarei, and then right next to him is the newest compost, which is here, that we set up a year later, which is a little bit of an upgrade for us, which is cool. And then we've got, if we go to the top right, that is the Fraser High and Western Community Centre compost in Hamilton that has been recently set up. If we go down clockwise, that's a pallet compost that we set up at He Marakai o Ngāti in Takahiwai. And then the final one is the Maniapoto Marakai in Tikawiti. So just a couple of examples of the many composts we've set up around the motu and continue to. And so these are all examples of community-led compost. So often when Parakore come in, we don't have the capacity ourselves to do the mahi necessarily at each site. So there really has to be a community desire, community passion to make these things happen. And that's what we support. We allow that the haukainga, the tangata whenua, the ahika of that place to take the lead. And that's one way in which we've had success. It means it doesn't all come back to us to be doing the mahi. Yeah, even though we love to do it. And yeah, we do a whole variety of compostings depending on what funding we can get, what the rōpū need, what types of things are going to be going in it. So the classic black bins in the corner, pallet compost, or then the kind of three fancier ones that you see. We recently got funding. Not sure what happened there. Sorry, I'm just gonna. It just turned off presenter view for me. Okay. Yeah, so the last ones we got there, we recently got funding to set up these awesome hot compost setups from Carbon Cycle, and they are expensive. Like, I won't lie, they're pretty expensive setups, but that's what has been awesome, that it's really been a community funded and the community collaboration to make these happen in the places that they have. Yeah, so all of the Carbon Cycle compost represent community collaboration between both not-for-profit, on-the-ground kaimahi, our agencies and funders. And yeah, so this is the most newest one we set up in Takahiwai at a Moumoukai that they have out there by the beach. So I just love sharing pictures of these because they're so beautiful. Like they're really a tahua. And yeah, so this is the whanau Patu Harakeke and a Moumoukai that they've started, and they want their community to be inputting compostable materials into it to make good soil to grow kai for their community. So in her keynote, Whai Jessica asked us, what can we do to elevate the mana of Hineahuone? And this has kind of stuck with me since yesterday, but I think it will stick with me for a lot longer. And one other thing I've been thinking of, like, I've had a lot of questions going around in my mind lately, and that question almost encapsulated it. And so I want to add an addition to that question, which is, how do we elevate the Māori of Hineahuone as well as the mana? And so these are the kind of pātai that I love putting to our rōpū when we set up compost, to get them thinking about what things we put in, what kinds of values surround that compost, because really it should be about elevating Hineahuone in every way to then grow amazing nutritional kai. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. That's my presentation. It was quite short, but that's because I want to workshop some questions that I have to try and get some answers from you guys. So I'm going to stop screen sharing in a second because I want to share a little bit about our compost here at Hihiawa. I want to talk about the process of setting it up, how we want to go forward with it. And I also want to talk about the application of tikanga to compost and elevating the mana and Māori of Hineahuone through our compost, and questions of tapu and noa that have come up, and setting a compost up at a cultural centre that is all about reclaiming, renewing and restoring our matauranga tuku iho. So stop share. Oh, there it is. Where are you guys? Okay. So I'm just going to kind of line these up so you can see. So this is our awesome compost. We haven't named it yet. We're just waiting on a few more decisions to be made, I guess. But we installed this about 3 weeks ago with funding that we were able to get from Eco Solutions through their Compost Connection program here in the north. If you haven't heard about it before and you're based in Taitokerau all the way up to Teheku, look it up, Compost Connection. They offer funding they offer to fund up to 80% of compost hubs, and that's up to 10. They can offer up to $8,000 towards a project. And so they asked the rōpū that sign up to that to provide the other 20%, which we were really lucky to receive funding from Parakore, but also because we value this mahi at Hihiawa, we were able to put in some of our own puti as well to make this happen, which was cool. And the frames come from Carbon Cycle, this company in Auckland. They've got a really beautiful story about how they began as well, a real love for creating beautiful soil as a way of fighting against climate change through the diversion of food waste from landfill, but also growing beautiful kai with that soil. So the rākau, the wood, comes from Waikiraka, Tamatiro area in Whangarei, and it's macrocapa. So it was donated to us by a lovely person called June Pittman from Ngāti Pākehā, and because it was on her property, and then Te Kaurinui, who is one of the carvers at Hihiawa, milled and cut the wood to prepare it for the compost. And so that put it all together. On the day that we put it together, we had people from our wairakau whanau, from the council, from different agencies around, from the kura, which is next door to us, Te Kapuhu Whetū. Their caretaking team came over and mowed the lawn so that we had amazing ingredients for the compost. The local cafe down the road gave us coffee grounds and to add to the compost. So it was just really a lovely community collaboration feeling when we put it together on the day. And since then, that has continued. Yeah, so that's our compost. And you can kind of see there's 4 bays. So the idea is that I'm just going to come off mode. The idea is that all the input goes in one box, and then each month it turns into the next box. And by the 4th month, it's in the 4th box, and it's ready to come out after that and be used. Well, actually, it needs to go through a little maturing process with worms, but then it's ready to use in the Moumoukai. We don't yet have a Moumoukai here at Hihiawa, so until that happens, we'll be donating that compost to community gardens around Whangarei. And if anything gets to the end of that 4 months and it's not quite processed yet, we just put it back in and it just goes through that cycle again. So we really liked that idea of it just going round and round until it was ready to come out. What else can I tell you about this compost? I think that's all good for the compost. Oh, so how it's going to work going forward. We're looking to get some signage made, and we've also been running regular workshops since it was installed to try and educate the community, because it's an open access community compost. So we're just 2 minutes from the real centre of town in Whangarei. So our idea is that local businesses, local people, the kura, and others around can come and just feed into the compost as and when they like. We're calling it the high trust model. And it's something that I encourage you to think about if you're setting up a community compost. I have been warned against it by many, many people because of the risk of the wrong stuff going in, an imbalance of stuff going in, people vandalizing or taking advantage of it being there, all those types of things. However, I've decided to trust in our community and hope that they see that we're doing something good, like trust that it is a good kaupapa, and that our community will see that, and that they, with the signage and the regular workshops and the education, and the fact that they can pop over to the cultural centre anytime to ask us questions, will allow for that open access to stay available. Yeah, kia ora, Rob. So how we manage the balance is we, myself and one other maintenance person, once a week comes in and checks the balance. So we do checks, a weekly check, and we're also, at the moment, we have an excess carbon bin. We have kind of assumed that most people will bring nitrogen heavy products like high scraps, and so we've got an excess of carbon that they can use to put into the compost. At the moment, we don't have a separate bin, so it's in one of the compost bins that isn't in use yet, but hopefully we'll be able to have a separate bin for, and that's just hay, dead leaves, and some cardboard as well. So yeah, I guess that's how we're trying to move forward, is with that high trust model that allows great community input, and we're hoping with that the community, that barrier is removed around people not being sure if they're, yeah, so just trying to make sure that it is accessible to our community at all times as much as we can. And we have got a backup plan for if this goes, at the moment it's going really well and about 3 weeks in, but we have got a plan what if that changes. And it's not something we want to do, but we can add padlocks to the compost and have it open at certain times. But yeah, we don't really want to do that. I don't want the extra mahi, but so yeah, that's our compost here at Hihiawa. And I encourage people to, when they can, when it is appropriate, to try that high trust model. You know, this is really good kaupapa. If I get a bit of plastic, if you know, someone decides where they're going to chuck their McDonald's bag today, I can pull it out. You know, the benefits to me outweigh those small negatives. Yeah, the benefit of everyone feeling welcome to come and feed in their compostable materials just totally outweighs the tiny little negatives that may happen along the way. So yeah, so one question that I want to wānanga about, and I'll let Katina kind of open up to the floor for kōrero, but one question that I really want to ask is how do we elevate the Māori of Hine Ahuone? So how do we elevate her Māori through what we put in our compost? It being a community compost means we have a lot of events who are using compostable packaging who want to put into our compost. At the moment, we're taking those in really small amounts. The reason for that is I can tell there is not that much nutrition in bioplastic, in that fibrous cardboard packaging. That isn't the stuff I want to be feeding Hine Ahuone. You know, like, it's okay to help deal with a little bit of waste in that way, but that doesn't elevate her Māori to me. And so that's what I want to talk about, how we set up community compost where the input is elevating, that we're putting in beautiful ingredients for her. The other issue that has kind of come up with our compost is tikanga. So being at Hihiawa, it is a centre of that is trying to reclaim, restore, renew Māori culture and identity. It really values matauranga tuku iho. And so this has raised a lot of questions because there are Pākehā wanting to come and use the community compost, of course. And sometimes a Western point of view can just see carbon and nitrogen and not tapu and noa. And so that's raised a lot of questions, especially for our kaumātua, about what we allow to be put in our compost. And we've kind of come to the conclusion that it has to be noa because it will be used in food growing. Everything that goes in here has to be noa. At the moment, that means nothing from humans, no human hair, no human nails, nail clippings, that kind of thing. This is different to what I guess Pākehā composting allows for, you know, in those info sheets that you get, and they say this is what you can put in. It says you can put in here, you can put in nail clippings, and I guess it is compostable. But yeah, we've decided those things are not noa, and so they're not going to belong in our compost. But yeah, I just wanted to open that up as there is a lot of kōrero going around what is tapu and noa when it comes to a compost. So yeah, kia ora.
Te koe, Hollie. Tuatahi, ka mihi atu koe mo tō kōrero, te kōrero katoa. Thank you so much. It was awesome kōrero about parakore, and also to be out there outdoors and take that risk of technical calamity. Tēnā rau atu koe. Awesome. So appropriate.